We've all done this. You are prepared to tackle a space that has just been disorganized for so long. You gear up, you walk in, you look around trying to figure out where to start. You're immediately overwhelmed and you end up shutting the door and giving up. If you've had this experience, then today's video is for you. Hello, welcome back to The Crafty Organizer. I'm Noreen Burke, and I did a video 4 years ago on how to declutter when you are overwhelmed, and it's been one of my most viewed videos to date. So if you haven't seen part 1 yet, I'll have that link in the description below. Check it out. It does have some of my favorite tips that I'm always sharing with my clients. But here are a few that I did not include in that first one, and I think they are super valuable if you're trying to tackle a space that you just keep getting overwhelmed by. My first tip is remove the things that are obviously not supposed to be in that space. That sounds ridiculous, but in my garage, I have a 4x4 workspace that I use as my workbench to spread out when I'm painting a project. And because it's a nice 4x4 sized space, it's my catch-all. If I just did a project and I need to clean up my office, I collect everything and I dump it there. If I have blankets that need to be washed because my laundry is in the garage, they end up on top. If I have holiday items that I bought on clearance and I haven't found a space for it, they land on top. So eventually I've got this teetering Jenga game balanced on this. It's an avalanche waiting to happen. And I look at it and think, oh my gosh, I just don't have time. I don't know where to start. So I walk away from it. The first thing I always do in that moment is start with the things that obviously don't belong in my workspace. That's my area for doing small woodworking projects, small DIY things. And I also, if you haven't seen my garage tour, have all of my gift wrapping in the drawers beneath it. So it's a nice open space to wrap presents. So anything that isn't tool related, painting related, or gift wrapping doesn't belong there. So I will one by one start taking those things and actually putting them away or finding the home for them. This is a great way to start because usually I will just spend about 15 minutes doing this. 9 times out of 10, because for me it's a small space, I'm done in that time. By just removing the obvious things first, I realize that those remaining items are so close to where they already belong, it's easy to tackle. So start with the things that obviously don't belong in that space first, and you might be surprised at how easy the rest of the project goes. Tip number 2 is discard anything that's large that's in your space. I don't mean furniture, but in my space right here, right now, I've got the wall shoe storage that I've been working on for weeks. I keep playing around with the configuration because I want to make sure that it's easy for you guys to do. So every time I come into my space, it's a large item that's in my way, so I keep moving it. And once again, seeing a visual clue of something that's out of place tells me that my space is messy and I will add to it. By just moving that one large item that doesn't belong here and finding a temporary home out of the way, I get a different sense of what my space is. I don't see it as visual clutter anymore, and I'm able to focus on those smaller items. The other thing that is oftentimes in our spaces when it gets overwhelmed, and I promise I have seen this in so many spaces, boxes. Just plain empty boxes. We keep them for in case, we keep them for projects, we keep them if we're donating, and inevitably we end up with multiple boxes in a space. Leave me a comment if you have empty boxes in your space that's overwhelming you right now. I would love to see how many of you share that you do have boxes. So get those larger, bulky things that don't belong out. Collapse the boxes, recycle them. If you know you're going to use them, again, break them down and set them aside so that you can rebuild them if you need them, but they're not taking up that big, bulky space. My number 3 tip is probably my favorite, and that's breaking down the space that you're trying to tackle into small bite-sized chunks. So if you are trying to do an entire craft room and you're already overwhelmed because there are too many likes to try and categorize with, or you can't even see what shouldn't be in the space, or there aren't a lot of large things, it literally is just so many smalls, just focus on a 2-foot area or one surface or one shelving space. Just break it down, focus on that little thing, and then reward yourself. One of the big things that I try and talk about a lot is celebrating each and every small victory that you have. Too often we set that reward for the end result instead of all of the little steps. And I'm gonna toot my own horn right now really quick. I had started a weight loss journey the end of last summer, and I was doing an accountability post on my Facebook, and I eventually just signed up with Weight Watchers, and it has been so exciting. I'm not looking at what my end goal is. I'm just focused on, did I eat well today? Did I exercise today? Did I lose a couple of ounces today? It's the small victories that we need to focus on. And by doing those small steps, you're going to get to the end goal. I've lost 36 pounds, which is mind-blowing to me. But it conveys the same way in a space. If I focus on doing an entire house to organize, oh my gosh, it's impossible. It's overwhelming. But if I focus on doing an entryway, an entry table, a drawer, a closet, and I'm excited about what I accomplished in that single session, then I am a winner. So break it down, look at the small segments that you can do, and be excited when you reach each and every one of those small milestones. Number 4 is the hardest one for me to say because no one wants to hear it, but that's in order to not be overwhelmed by your things anymore, you have to minimize what you have. So being really honest and donating those things that you're not using, not wanting, you bought with every intention of making good use of it, but it's been sitting there for years. The less you have, the less overwhelmed you will be. I've watched so many shows where I watch organizers come in and work with clients, and I've even had clients of my own where they have mounds and mounds of clothing, and they don't know if it's clean, if it fits, so they go out and buy more clothes so they have an active wardrobe. And then their complaint is, I don't have enough room for all of my clothes. The issue is I don't have enough storage. But the reality is they don't have an issue with storage, they have an issue with quantity. It happens in kitchens, garages, craft spaces. So I know you don't want to hear this, but you really have to be mindful about what you have. I've likened this to the 5-gallon bucket so many times. If you have a 5-gallon bucket, no matter how creative you are, when you start pouring water in, it's going to tap out at 5 gallons. So whatever space you have, it can only hold so much. And trust me, I am a Tetris queen. I can make every single inch usable. So I definitely have more, and I have been on a journey of decluttering. I've been doing this for about 4 years now, and I'm about to do a whole re-purging. This all feels super cluttered to me right now, because as I've been going through my journey and I've been minimizing, it feels so liberating to have less. I don't have to struggle with where to put things anymore. But as my kids are getting ready to go off and live lives on their own, I know I'm going to be downsizing. I know I'm going to be getting that RV. This won't fit in my RV. So it's time for me to minimize. And if you are finding that your space is always cluttered, then you might really need to take that honest look and decide, do I need more space? And if that's an option, if you can go into a new space to accommodate your things, fantastic. But if your 5-gallon bucket is full and you are balancing on top to contain all of these things, be honest and start letting go those things that you're just not using. Number 5 is one that I've said in many ways, many times, but that's you just got to dive in. Whether it's setting the timer for 5 minutes, playing one song and seeing what you can do, picking a certain amount of items, 1 item, 5 items, 10 items, and seeing how many things you can get out of that space, whatever method you choose, it has to just be a Band-Aid ripped off. I'm going to start. I want you to be so excited. If you commit to walk in and picking up one thing and leaving that room, don't worry about what anybody else is going to say. You're going to have people around you going, "What'd you get done today?" Ignore them. Come to me. I will be your cheerleader. But get in that space and start doing that one tiny thing, and those tiny things will add up. So start. Dive in, make that commitment to yourself that you are going to dive in and start dedicating getting that item that's overwhelming you minimized. Is it a pile of paperwork? Is it memorabilia that's just been nagging at you forever? Is it a craft space? Is it a garage? Is it clothing that's bursting at the seams? Make the commitment. Keep coming back and letting me be a cheerleader for you. I've got a fantastic support group on Facebook of amazing, supportive, understanding people who have all been there. Join that page, but do it for yourself to dive in today and pick one small thing in that space and then stick with doing that one small bit that you commit to on a daily basis. You will be blown away by what you can get done. I hope some of these tips helped you. I know it's so easy to talk about getting organized. It's one of those things that, oh yeah, well you can do it because, but we all have the same struggles when an item is difficult. We all have a different thing that will stop us in our tracks. I've had my own, but I want you to know that you can do it. And when you're in doubt, remind yourself you can do this. Thank you so much for watching today. Thank you to my patrons. They allow me to make these videos. Your support of watching, liking, commenting is just as helpful. So thank you for being here today, and I'll see you in just a few. Bye.